Hello and welcome back to another WTF preseason show as the days count down to the big kickoff and the signings continue to roll in and the friendly games continue to be largely pointless. Sunderland are big news this summer and I certainly haven't been able to get any of the deserved time off, so why should any of my co-hosts? First and foremost, it's Pete Oliver. Pete, how are you, mate? You alright?
I am fantastic, he says, exactly on cue and not trying to let a dog in that was just scratching at the door and has just decided that he doesn't want to come in. Fantastic! Professional as always. Start as you mean to go on. I thought I had a second to run to the door, Graham. I clearly didn't. I'm all right, mate. How's yourself? It's all busy, like trying to between Sunderland signing players and work and trying to get away on holiday. But yeah, good, man.
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I think this is why we don't do video podcasts. I had a chat with a very famous, well, famously famous Sunderland podcast, and he was saying, "Oh, I think you should do video. I think not enough people do the video ones. You should do some." And this is why we don't do it. The words Pete came out my mouth as Pete stood up and basically walked away from the camera, which was like a momentary panic because I told him to stop his ums and his ers and give me less editing. And already there might be an editing point, but let's keep it in. It'll be fine. I can't be asked. It's pre-season. We're just warming up for the proper podcasts. Sophie, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm having a good summer. So is Sunderland, which is always great to see. And yeah, hope everyone's having an exciting time as I am. I can't wait for the start of the season. I'm so excited.
What are you more excited about? Isaac basically fucking the mags off or, or signing players?
Just that. Just that. Let's just do a podcast about that.
I probably could, to be fair, but I might get wrong. Look, I'll stick with you. So, for the time of speaking, we're speaking before the whole game, like literally just before the team just came out. But the big news, regardless of what happens at Hull, is going to be the signing of Granit Xhaka. I'll say that again: the signing of Granit Xhaka from Bayer Leverkusen. I don't know if it's an AI photo or not, but let's pretend it's not. It looks like he's come off the plane at this point. There has been a deal that fell apart at the very last minute, which we'll get on to. Let's hope that doesn't happen. It looks like it's going to be a real shock if it's not official. I think I know the answer to this, but what's your immediate thoughts on the deal?
I think it's absolutely huge. I think it is such a monumental point. I said it before. I think it's monumental. I think it's such an important signing for us. I think it is the difference between going down and staying up. I think it's that big. I think that a player of his quality, and you know what, just us being able to attract a player of his stature, as far as Leverkusen, they didn't want to let him go. That's the vibe I've got from them is that he was such a massive part of their squad. And Ten Hag is, everyone's been calling him Baldy online and saying, shut up, like, let him come. Um, Not wanting him to go, I think it says a lot. And I think it says a lot about how far we've come as a football club. And I'm loving how hands-on KLD's been during this deal because it seems to be he's been the driving force of it. And look, it is a lot of money to pay for a 32-year-old, nearly 33. But what you get with Granite is leadership, experience, and above all quality, which will drive standards around the dressing room. And that's what I'm happy to see.
He ticks all the boxes. I've been doing that thing where I've sort of deep dived in. The best thing about it is with Xhaka, I didn't need to deep dive that much. I kind of know what he brings and what he does. And this time last year, I was worried from an England perspective that he was having such a good tournament. Was he going to be able to stop Jude Bellingham? Which I think kind of speaks volumes of the level of player he is. And look, each time at Arsenal wasn't all perfect. He fell out with the fans. He lost the captaincy and all that kind of stuff. But Arsenal are a very different club to Sunderland and their ambitions and stuff like that. And he actually turned that round, which I think, he then went under Leverkusen and he had that invincible season where they basically won every game apart from one game. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Sunderland, but I think I kind of echo exactly what you're saying, Sophie, to be honest. I think when I first heard that we were going to sign him, I went, all right, this is Granit Xhaka wants to come back to the Premier League. He'll pretend he wants to come to Sunderland. Other clubs will come in for him, and it'll be like, oh, Sunderland couldn't quite match the wages. And I was like, okay, fair enough. At least the names are getting mentioned. Even the name being mentioned made me go, huh, well, at least it's not, Callum Styles. No offense, Callum Styles or someone like that. I thought it's a step up that they're even mentioned. When it started becoming quite a serious thing, I don't know, it took me a while to believe it. And look, it's not done yet at the time of speaking, but I'd be shocked if it isn't. And if it is, then I'll just delete the podcast and we'll just be absolutely fine and we'll just forget about it and not worry. But Pete, I know you're excited about it because I think we've spoke about it in the group chat, and I think I mainly said, didn't I, to you for like a week, it's not happening, lads. That's not going to happen. That would be stupid. Not happening. Then he was like, no, no, no. There's a thing coming out where he said he wants to sign. I went, no, no. He's just telling other Premier League clubs he's available. Not going to happen. And then it appears that it's going to happen, Pete.
Yeah, it was. I was very much on the. Well, it's nice to be linked. It's nice to have your name mentioned around these type of players. Very much of that ilk for the vast majority of this transfer saga. And actually, I was calling it a transfer saga. It's not been at all, and that's one of the things where I've been very pleased with. These are massive money deals in terms of money that's going to be laid out, in terms of wages that's going to be paid. So they are going to take a bit of due diligence to get them over the line. And I just and I was very conscious that I did after promising not to. I am, however, really taken aback by the fact that, like what you said there, this is the first time Sunderland have signed a player. And I'll be honest here, like I only really watch Sunderland. I watch a bit of Bundesliga and I watch a bit of the seventh tier of German football, which is my local village club. I'd gone are the days where I used to watch every single second of every single league that was on any channel, but I just don't have the time anymore. For them to sign somebody who I don't even have to dig deep into the mental Rolodex to go, oh, he's a good player. it's a bit of a, well, like what Sophie said is it'll drive standards. I think you can guarantee that from Granit Xhaka, the player, the man who he is in the dressing room and on the training fields and on the pitch when he's playing those matches. But I think it also, I think some people around the club must be looking and going, bloody hell, is this who we are now? This is great. Because it was so recent in everybody's memories that it wasn't like this. And in fact, it would be interesting to see what the atmosphere around the club is based on these signings coming in, because it must be electric. The fact that you've got a game-changing player, the 16th best player in the world, I believe, according to no smaller an opinion garner than the Ballon d'Or shortlist. So, he must be all right. Like, I'm just very, very happy with the whole thing. Look, be interesting to see how they get on tonight. Obviously, we can't preview too much of that because this is going to come out after it. But look, great. I hope he comes down to Augsburg when I go and watch them play there. However, I do have a feeling I'm probably seeing either the bomb squad or the under 21s, but never mind. It's a 7-hour drive to go and watch that, but I'll do it anyway.
The most interesting aspect of the entire transfer for me is the fact that the minions did actually work. The AI photos of the minions worked.
I'm very much against that, but if it went, I think Lee, formerly of this parish, said to us, he says, Pete, I don't give a toss, mate. They can do it all. They can do whatever they want as long as it works, and it has worked. It was funny, but I would be happy if it never happened again. Maybe that's just the Grinch in me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not how I would like to do signings, but depending on who we need and if it's working, let's go for it. Look, Pete, I'll stick with you on that. I think I said before I didn't think the signing was going to happen, but I spoke in depth. I think we all spoke in depth. I can't remember who was on the podcasts, probably over the past sort of 6 months, about how important bringing someone like the ilk of Jordan Henderson back would be, because leadership, sort of know-how, Premier League experience, free transfer. And I said, look, I'd be daft not to sign him. But I'll be honest, the more we've discussed Xhaka, the more I feel like it's kind of nullified that point, and I'm like, it'll be nice to see him when we play Brentford, but I'm okay with Granit Xhaka. I think it sort of nullifies that, doesn't it? It's basically, and I'll be honest, I think Henderson's had a better career, but Jordan Henderson's 35, nearly 36. I think Xhaka's still very much playing for a Champions League club, at the captain of a Champions League club. I think he's a captain of Bayer Leverkusen. I'd be shocked if he's
Not anymore.
Well, not anymore. No, he's going to be the captain of Sunderland, I think. But it nullifies it a little bit, doesn't it? This is like an upgrade on what we actually hope for.
Before his name was mentioned, I would have thought there was no deal in world football that made more sense than Jordan Henderson to Sunderland this summer. Then we started to hear that the recruitment team had never really been in touch with him, and it had never been on the cards. And as soon as that happened, you start thinking that we've got to have a level of trust in this recruitment team now. If we don't, then God, what do they have to do? They win us a Champions League. For For when Granit Xhaka was mentioned, he just made perfect sense. And he made perfect sense, not just from like, this is the experience we need, but just of who he is as the player, his background, and everything that goes with it. I can see him fitting into that team very well. I hope I'm right. I have to say it, mind, you did say he lost the fans a little bit at Arsenal, or he lost the captaincy at Arsenal. There's two lads who work for us who are both Arsenal fans, like, and both of them have said, fantastic. Like, that's a great signing for you. He's a fantastic player, could still do it at the very, very top. So Sunderland have clearly offered him something. I mean, it sounds like they've offered him 140,000 something, so there or thereabouts per week. But they've offered him something. I don't think he would just be jumping ship for the money. He certainly sees something in Kittle's ambitious project. And as Sophie said, it's really nice to see the gaffer, the boss, the owner so heavily involved in some of these deals. And it's all been done very businesslike. I quite like that. You sent through the tweet, didn't you? Was it from Bayern, where they'd said, not Bayern, from Bayer, where they'd said, look, there's an amount, there's an amount and there's a deadline. Either it'll be agreed or it won't. And I thought, actually, do you know what? That's great. Well, at least it's going to be done soon. And it was done, 24 hours later? Less than that? We see it done. I mean, as you said, if it doesn't end up getting done, this is just getting binned, isn't it? But it's definitely done, man. It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
It would feel like a real shocker at this point. It wasn't, and that's not. I would very rarely say that on a podcast, to be honest, because ultimately this was going to go out.
I know, Graham, but we can't have nice things.
I know. We have recently. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've had,
that is very true.
I've had a great few months. Like those we won the playoffs in the best way possible. Like the Dan Ballard goal still gets watched daily. Lionesses have won a second Euros. Like for me, the teams and the things that I support, I'm flying. Like I'm very happy. But in terms of the signing itself, Sophie, I think you mentioned it before, and we've talked about it sporadically since we signed Enzo, I think, and we kind of went, what does this mean for Sunderland? Because it's a step up on signing young, hungry players. It's like young, good players with a reputation. I know he's not a young player. He's 33 in September, I think, but he's a vastly experienced captain of his country. Previously of Arsenal at Leverkusen, he's a title winner. He's a world-class footballer, ultimately, is what he is. Maybe not in his pomp. He's not 27, but he's a world-class footballer by name. Will clubs now look at that and say, fair enough, actually, I fancy a little bit of that myself, to be honest, and is this likely to open doors for future signings because they see that, I mean, essentially, we feel like we're in business. Players are going to see that as well, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Players talk to each other. I think that's something that we've realised, particularly with signing French players, that they speak to each other, they know each other, and it's kind of the tale as old as time of, oh, I know so and so, and they told me that it was really good here. I think Wilson had said it spoke to quite randomly and said, he said it was a good place to be, and I think that's key. It's a good place to be. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in the Premier League. We're going into it largely an unknown. We have been out 8 years. It's changed a lot in 8 years. The money aspect of it has changed a lot in 8 years. But I do think that it opens a door. Like you say, the Enzo one was such a coup for us because everyone kept saying it. This is a massive coup for Sunderland. And then I've seen a couple of people say about, oh, well, Enzo has been a flop. I don't think so.
Bollocks.
His assists in the playoffs got us promoted. Simple as that. And I think we're going
I'm
to see.
Sorry to jump in, so I have to say I do not get that, and I keep seeing it pop up every now and again. It's like, oh, you bought that Lefay and he's rubbish. It's like, well, hang on, the lad kissed the ball and stuck it on Dan Ballard's head. Like he's writing scripts while he's playing football.
Absolutely.
Anyway, sorry.
Absolutely, though, and it does feel like things have clicked and things have changed for us, particularly since Enzo's signing, and it shows that the ambitious project, and we love that. I love that. I love that we're being described as that, because I remember a time when people used to say, "Oh, getting Sunderland turned around is like trying to turn a cow in a field." Like we've had that for so long, and like Pete said, we're not allowed nice things because we're used to bad shit happening to us. It's as simple as that. But I do think that Shaka's not signing to mess around with the bottom three. He's not.
No.
That's just
Also,
not going to happen.
there was 140 grand. So look, let's say that's the number he's been offered. It
So
seems
somewhere
accept.
said for the record 75, by the way.
Oh, right, okay.
If we
Please.
bagged them on 75, by the way, like
Absolutely
Okay.
brilliant. I mean, but what I was going to say is probably 100, 140 is out there for him many, many places. There wasn't just Sunderland he could have come for it. He could have played European football and getting that. He's come because there's something on offer here. And that's really exciting, isn't it?
do we rename Jackie White's market
Yes.
to Jackie White's market?
Wait until he scores against the Mags. I mean, what does he get? I think it gets temporarily done for scoring against the Mags. If he can lead us to an FA Cup, perhaps then it gets fully named.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, but look, ultimately you can hear by the sort of giddiness how big the signing is, and look,
It's gone, man.
you can never say a signing will be a success, but everything about the signing in terms of what we want from Sunderland, the experience we require, the level of ability that he's got for what our hopes are this season, which is for me, finish 17th. That'll do me, no bother whatsoever. It ticks a million boxes, and if it doesn't work out, then it's just Sunderland, isn't it? It's back to old Sunderland. But it very much feels like from the minute Dan Ballard's napper went on that Lefay cross, the flop, and he put it in the top corner, it kind of feels like the old Sunderland, and it's just Sunderland isn't really the Sunderland that I expect. But there is one thing that I wanted to ask you about, Pete. It does ask a question of Dan Neil because
Yeah.
look, if Pete, I'm sure people are aware of the situation. Dan Neil's the captain. Is Granit Xhaka going to come in as captain? There's been one rumour saying that he will come in as captain. So there's that aspect of it. The other aspect is the fact that in pre-season we've been playing largely of Siddiqui. We've been playing Diarra, who's obviously our record signing, by the way. You're then bringing in Xhaka into that as well. You've also got Enzo that's going to be playing in the 10. You've also got Chris Rigg, who can actually play in the 8 or in the 10. I'd largely say I think Chris Rigg's so talented he could play the 6, and I really don't want people to forget the team that we had last season. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Dan Neil. Like a really big fan. And I know some people seem to have gone because we've signed big money players and stuff like that, that Dan Neil suddenly turned into the player that that not that good of a player. But there is financials about this. His contract's up in a year. We don't know why that's not been signed. I'm not going to pretend we know why that's not been signed. We don't do in the know on this podcast, as we know. We don't know why it hasn't been signed, but it hasn't, is ultimately what the case is. At this point, you've got to say on paper, you're not going to bring in three players for the best part of 60, 70 million and not play them. And Dan Neil has that 1 year left on his contract with rumoured interest, I think I seen from Everton at one point. If he's not going to sign, I think we know this club's not going to sit and allow him to go for free because then you make no money. You also bring in the PSR aspect of it, and he'd be pure PSR because he's an academy player. I don't want to see this happen. I'd rather him stay at the club, but I understand these days football has an element of business, Pete. Is there now a big question mark on Daniel's future? Because if he's not signing a contract, I don't think it's wise to keep him on board if we're not.
I think it's ultimately a very small question, and it all sits with Dan Neil. And
Yeah,
it's what he wants. It's what he wants and what he is willing to accept because things have changed from last year. So he is going to have to accept some things. And I think one of those that would make a lot of sense is that if you bring in the Swiss national captain with the experience that he has, playing at the level that he has, and one of his main attributes is being a leader both on and off the field, it just seems like you make him captain. Now, Dan has to accept that. He might not accept that. He might think, I think that's outrageous. I was the captain. But I don't know Dan Neil's mind. I've actually never even met Dan Neil at all once. He's one of those ones.
Once.
He seems like a lovely lad. Anyway, so I love the shrug. I mean, is that right? Like
More tan than you'd expect.
very tanned, really.
Not very, but more than you'd expect.
More than you'd expect.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to be less tanned than me in most
Also,
times, but never mind.
I can't help but look at Dan Neil now and just go, Trey, will you just fuck off?
Yeah, I love. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm starting to. It's hard not to read more into some of those videos than things, is it? I mean, he did look. I mean, not the tray would you fuck off bit, but he did look a little nonplussed in some of the pre-season stuff. Maybe that. Look, that's the man's style. That's the way he is. If he's willing to sign on what's on offer, which would be, you would presume, a considerably better offer that he's on at the moment, and you would presume, considering what they've been offering to players that have come in and what they're looking at for a certain level of experience that Dan Neil has. It's ultimately it comes right down to him. If he wants to sign for it and he's willing to fight for a place in the team, I think there is a place there for him. However, if he's not willing to sign now in this window, I would imagine there is a clock ticking on when they would have gone, Dan, you're loved here. You're a part of the furniture. You've been here since you were a bairn. You're team captain, all of this. But if you don't have a contract, you're also a saleable asset. And we know that they're not messing about on the business side. And if you can get maybe let's say 12 million for Dan Neil is pure profit for PSR. If what the players they're bringing in at the moment, there's no reason to doubt that the 5-year plan that they've talked about isn't also a 10-year plan, isn't a 15-year plan. Those PSR points are going to come good at some point. They're going to be needed. If he isn't willing to commit to the club and fight for a place, then he has to be sold. And that's with the heaviest of hearts, but the most business of heads.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a lot of the time, I tend to deal with football and pure emotion because it's not my money, it doesn't matter. But like, it's been so good recently over the past year that I kind of don't really want that to change. So I do trust what's happening at the moment. And look, I was at the game on. We'll get into it, but I was at the game on. I was really lucky to be at the game on Saturday for my work. I've never covered a Sunderland game when I haven't been in the Sunderland end. I've never covered a Sunderland game because the only other games I've covered, there hasn't been an away end because it was during COVID and we weren't allowed to go, which was also at Tynecastle, and I got to spend a bit of time on the pitch afterwards and sort of see some of the players and stuff with people who know James Copley, and how like we had a bit of a chat with Jensen Seal after the game and stuff like that. He's an absolute monster of a man, by the way. He's huge, but they were all very together in terms of the players, in terms of, I can't pronounce his name, but the new Italian boy, Gasolfi, Gasoffel, Gasolfi. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Is it Gizofli or something like that? Gizoffel?
He was
Gizofli.
he was dressed incredibly smart to begin with, very Italian in the way that he looked, but there was like a togetherness where they were all chatting, like the top brass, shall we say, were all together chatting, Regis and stuff like that. What I found, I'm going off on a tangent a little bit here, and we'll come back to Daniel. But I was sat right behind the bench, the media bit in the Tynecastle that sat me literally right behind Reggie Slabreese's sort of head. So because I didn't really care about the match and we played shite, I sort of spent more time watching how he gets his instructions across. Who does he speak to? Who relays stuff back? And Daniel was involved in that an awful lot, but a lot of the time, and look, he had a poor game, Daniel, on Saturday. But it's pre-season. I don't really care, if I'm honest. I'm sure we'll get into it, but I don't really care. But he was really poor for the standards that he has. But a lot of the time, he was sort of indicating to Regis that the passes he was getting into him and the passes he was trying to give off, the players weren't working around him. But ultimately, look, that can happen. That's what pre-season's there for. What I noticed was that he spoke an awful lot to Dan Neil in terms of the instructions, but the person that gives all of those instructions on the field, and the thing that the entire game plan's worked around, from what I could see, this is anyway, I mean, I don't know, is Enzo. Whenever a bit of information needed to be fed, Regis was like, Enzo, two fingers, come over, brings him over, chats to him in French, haven't got a clue what they were saying, but every little bit of information goes to Enzo. It feels like that team, the instructions, the way we play, the way the where the ball goes through, where the passes need to get to, who needs to spring the attacks, who needs to really create the transitions, is Enzo, and it's really, really interesting. But I found it equally as interesting, and not that it shouldn't be, because he's the captain, but a lot went through Dan Neil, but Dan Neil seemed particularly miffed that some of the passes that he was getting weren't quite what he wanted to be. I'm not reading into that. Like, look, him being annoyed during the match, that's got doesn't mean oh he's desperate to leave. I'm just saying like the point I'm trying to make was that a lot of the stuff went through him, but mainly through Enzo. But it's not like Dan Neil's just been pushed to the side now. Everything goes through Diarra and all the new players. Dan Neil was very much still part of like leading that team. It's sort of almost like in a second in command almost through Reggie's. But it was an interesting thing to watch because I've never watched a Sunday game through that prism, and it was really really interesting to watch. Um, but like, look, I wanted to check the same question to you, Sophie, because I've rambled a little bit, then gone off on a tangent. Daniel's future is a question, isn't it? I mean, at what point do we have to make a decision on that? Or is it Daniel's decision to make?
I think that it's it's like what Pete said. He said about having the business brain of things, and that the clock is ticking, and it is ticking. It's And we've spoken a lot about, things have changed, and that, you've said yourself, Graham, about how much you loved the squad from last season, and that things have had to change. It's as simple as that. And it all comes down to attitude. Now, I love Dan Neil. If anything, I've defended Dan Neil's captaincy stature a lot, but it all comes down to because everyone's going to have an opportunity. It's the Premier League. And, Kieran McKenna, obviously from Ipswich, one of the things he said, and which I thought was quite poignant, was that he was surprised with how much squads got stretched. Premier League teams can field 11 after 11 after 11 and still be high quality. And everyone's going to get an opportunity. It's the same as last season. You know what? You might not play every game. Hjelde didn't play every game, but when he came on, he made an impact and he played a part in that. However, with Dan, it's all down to his. It all comes down to whether he wants to stay, like Pete said, and fight for a place. And if he doesn't, and he thinks he can walk into a Premier League outfit somewhere else, I doubt it. I think that'd be quite difficult for him to do. But we can't afford to be having people who are going to be problems in the dressing room, or going to be like, well, I'm the captain, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. When if Xhaka comes in and he's captain, very different to Dan. Like I've said before, Dan is not screaming and shouting and pointing and all this other stuff. He's not. Xhaka, what I've seen from him, is. But I do think that we'll see Dan unfortunately leave, but I do think it will be for the best. I think if he does end up leaving, I just think that it's the most sensible thing to do if he's not going to sign a contract. Because the last thing I want is for him to run down that contract and us lose, like essentially PSR, when it can be used for our benefit.
We'll see. I do hope he does sign, mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I want him. I
really,
want him to, but I do think that it's. I think it's a difficult one for him, because I think that when you've gone from playing essentially he was one of our most important players. He was
yeah.
probably one of the most important names on the team sheet. But now I think if he has to adapt to being essentially a squad player, or coming on and maybe he's subbing for Diarra or someone like that, I think it'll be difficult for him as a player, as an important player of. I play FM, I know.
Yeah.
I think it would be
Dynamics.
massively character building. I think it could potentially be massively character building if he was to stop and try and fight for the place, accept less minutes. But
Mm.
you're going to be seeing every day one of the finest players to play the position in the world. So there can't be anything well, there must be something he would pick up from Granit Xhaka. A lot of it's going to come down to that. What I said is about what he's willing to accept, and
I
it might
think
be that lesser role.
based on the last two preseason games, which I'm going to repeat mean absolutely nothing, but I thought the midfield looked like, I think even Reggie's admitted afterwards, he was like, oh, the midfield's kind of clicking faster than I thought, actually. I mean, he said it in a slightly different accent and probably said something slightly different, but that was largely the tone of it. And I was like that. I watched the Sevilla game and I watched more intently. I watched the Sporting Lisbon game, and I thought we were quite unlucky. And I was really impressed by how quick the passing was, with like Siddiqui and Diarra and Enzo like dropping in that sort of 8/number 10 role. I was really really impressed with it, and I thought we were probably just didn't have the shooting boots on the night. Watching us on Saturday, I felt like we slowed down with Dan in that position. Because I think the way Daniel plays is different. I think he is someone who's calm, composed on the ball, and will look for the best pass as opposed to the quicker pass. Whereas like it didn't really seem to work with Siddiqui, and then Diarra when Diarra came on, who look, I mean, they weren't impressive either. It was a really poor performance actually, but again, it's pre-season, and I don't know. Obviously, I cover Scottish football, that's why I was there for the game. Hearts are well ahead of us in terms of fitness and preparation, and watching the game, they looked fitter and stronger. So shock horror, like why that happened and why we got beat, it's not really that surprising. But I just felt there was quite a drop off in the midfield performance, particularly in terms of how slow we looked in comparison to the Sporting Lisbon game. But again, it's look, you're picking up little chunks of things from games which are ultimately pointless. So like in an ideal world, in an ideal world, I would want Daniel to perform so well that he keeps Granit Xhaka out the squad because I'd rather have a local lad captain the team. So that's what I'd ideally want. But like in a utopian world, if Daniel performs better than I expect Granit Xhaka to, then it's going to be slightly surprising, but there'll be no one happier than me because he's red and white through and through, and ultimately that's what if I could have like a Bilbao team where they're all like from sort of Sunderland or Durham, I'd be all right with that with a couple of South Shields players later in now and again. That would be great, but I don't think that really works these days, and sadly in football. But look, I want Dan to stay. I want him to sign a contract, but if he doesn't, ultimately we can't just let the boy run out his contract for free when he might not even play that often. What I would say, if Dan does go, and this is all very much surmised now, we've probably gone a little bit too deep into it because he's just been posted on Instagram as the man walking into the whatever the whole stadium's called these days. So maybe that's a point that I'm trying to say that he does want to, he is part of the plans, and like I say, hopefully he is. It's just a thought process. But if he is to move on, the question would be, do we bring another midfielder in? And like Sophie said, I think Kieran McKenna said the thing he was surprised at most was how like stretched his squad was. The thing that wasn't surprising was how far his team's arse was stretched. But there you go. The Premier League is the Premier League. He he. I don't think he would need replaced in the squad. I think I'd really and look, famous last words, and people are going to disagree with me on this 100%. I feel like with the midfielders that we've got, which would be Xhaka, Diarra, Siddiqui, Rig. Who else am I missing out there? Am I thinking of? And then, there's the Brown is your other one. I feel there's enough there because Riggy can play in certain positions, and I think would be extremely unlucky to lose four of them or three of them. I think you'd be extremely lucky to lose three of them at the same time. Famous last words, but I think we'd maybe be okay, and I think it's probably more important that we put money into centre halves. I think a goalkeeper, and that's not writing Pato off. I would like competition for Pato at the very least. Not Aaron Ramsdale, like. And I would like another centre forward on top of that as well that can guarantee us sort of 10, 15 goals. Um, I wanted to cover the game a little bit. I feel like it's old news, if I'm honest with you, to cover the game on Saturday. Look, I was really lucky to be there. I'm a huge fan of Craig Gordon. I've got a nice big signed signed shirt of his on the wall in the house. It was a really lovely occasion. It was really great to get a catch up with Craig afterwards, and chat to him about Sunderland. And look, I won't quote him word for word, but he has so much time and appreciation for Sunderland. Like he loves being at Sunderland. I love being at Sunderland, and obviously Hearts is his club. But I think considering the success he had at Celtic afterwards and how it kind of ended for him at Sunderland, it would be easy to kind of look back in a bad way. But far from it, he really loved his time at Sunderland, and it really comes across, and it was really nice to see because he was a fantastic goalkeeper in my personal opinion. But ultimately, the game was really, really bad. We played really, really badly, and it was actually so bad at one point I started going, the preseason games actually matter because this is really bad. But Pete, do you read into preseason games? And look, by this time we could have whacked 12-5-0 and this is a moot point, but it didn't work. But there's caveats to that, I think, isn't there,
Yeah.
with fitness?
Yeah, no, no, they don't matter. They don't matter at all unless you score lots of goals against somebody who supposedly is bigger than you. But then they matter, but only because they're positive. Look, I thought Hemia looked like a cracking goal scorer last year in pre-season, I'll be honest. So, yeah, they played bad. It wasn't very good. It wasn't a great watch. put it off for part at one bit. Yeah, it doesn't really bother us. It doesn't bother us at all how badly they play during pre-season. It only bothers us that Regis has the mindset right for that moment that they kick off against West Ham. And I've got no reason to believe he won't have that sorted out. I mean, he's got these games in pre-season to try things. You mean you got to see it a bit more close up? Did he look like he was tinkering with stuff, or did he look like he was happy to let things play out?
Do you know what it is? I've never been in a Reggie Slibbery's press conference. I've obviously watched an awful lot of them, and I was in his press conference on Saturday, and he's just such a good bloke. That's all I could remember
Great.
from it. He's just a great fella. Like someone said to me, like, "Oh, what's the stick with Triantis?" Because obviously you had Edinburgh journalists there, and he went, "He's injured." And they went, and I asked him, and I think people had seen the quote, and someone went, I think it was Scott Wilson from the Northern Echo, great bloke. He said, "So what, like, where are we at with Granit Xhaka?" And he just gave like a really like wry smile that didn't say yeah or no, but kind of made you as a Sunderland fan go, huh? And he went,
And
"I can't discuss rumors, you know. I'll discuss it like when I can." But he actually seemed a little bit more, I wouldn't say frustrated, but I think he was disappointed with the level of performance and was like, no, that wasn't quite good enough, I don't think. But Jensen Seal, to be fair, was exactly the same. He like apologized to the fans, and I mean, people will be able to see the comments from, I think they're on the Sunderland Echo with James Copley, you'll be able to see the comments on there. But the players looked a little bit peeved, I'm not gonna lie. But Regis was like, look, Regis was cool as a fucking cucumber, like he always is. What a ledge.
yeah, I like the idea of the little enigmatic wink and nudge of don't worry about it. So maybe it is, maybe it is not.
Yeah, yeah, he's just a very one thing I'll give him is he's very straightforward. I think I've seen that from press conferences before, and the people I was there with on Saturday all said the same thing. That when you ask him a question, he'll tell you honestly. And I think his honest, although it sounds like he's speaking in riddles by saying it's just rumors, he's actually telling the truth. Like he's not
They
lying to
don't
you.
they don't look exactly alike, and I'm probably doing it because they're French, even though one of them's Tunisian, actually, I think. But he does remind me a lot of Albert Camus and how he looks and how he shrugs and all of the things sometimes. And yeah, I can dig that. I really look. I think he's such a great advert for the club as well.
Yep.
I love when I get to see a Reggie's interview out in the wild, not on the BBC, not on with Barnsley and Benno and them on the BBC Sports Show, or like on a Sunderland website when you hear it like on Talk Sport or something like that. And like, oh, how you hear people speak about him going, oh, he seems very cool and confident, don't he? Which could just be like about 9 or 10 of the presenters on Talk Sport, but
I quite like them at the moment because they're all winding up the neighbours from up the road about he's away,
yeah.
away, away, away.
Oh dear, oh
Um,
dear, oh dear.
I'm trying to hold my laugh in. But James Trafford is signed for Man City. Gone to a big club. Good. So looking that's exclusive news as we speak. Let's get into the listeners' questions because I forgot to ask people for questions. I'm going to take the first one because I quite like this question and I feel like it's probably something that people are not really concentrating on, probably. Where is it again? It's disappeared now. There it is. Speaking with your head, not your heart, which is hard for me to do sometimes. Will we struggle this season? I think we'll suffer. Yeah, I think we'll suffer this season. And I think I feel very much like I'm speaking like a an international manager during an international tournament when they're playing a team that they're not quite favourites to beat. You say we've got a game plan, but we're gonna have to get used to suffering. But I do think we'll suffer at points this season. There'll times when, as a fan base, because it matters so much to us, like we know it does, that we'll wobble. We'll start to worry. There'll be times when we're in the relegation zone, I think, and I think there'll be times when we have 3 games off the back, and then have a 2 week international break or whatever, where we it feels like it's been 5 weeks since a win. But I think if we are to go down, which is possible, and if we are to really struggle this season, like I can't criticize anyone for like at this moment in time and speaking, I can't really criticize too much what the club are doing and trying to make that sure that doesn't happen. And that's kind of all I can ask for. A lot of my annoyances with any part of the club, be it Ellis Short, be it Stuart Donald, be it KLD, have been when in my personal opinion, that they haven't done the right thing for the club and they haven't tried to do the right thing for the club at the same time. And the focus has been shifted elsewhere. I don't think I can criticise any part of the football club, be it the players on the pitch, the manager in the dugout, KLD at the top, Speakman, Stuart Harvey, who I don't think gets enough credit at all. I think everyone always talks about Speakman a lot of the time, to my knowledge. The head scout will be the one that does it, and then Speakman will be the one that sorts a deal out. So I really don't think Stu Harvey gets enough. If we go down, we go down. I had an unbelievable day at Wembley where I hope the momentum continues on, and I feel like it will, and I think we'll stay up. I'll put it on record. I think we will stay up. I think it'll be by the skin of our teeth. I think us and Leeds will buck the trend. Two massive football clubs I think Leeds have had a decent window as well. I know everyone's saying, oh, we've nicked all the players, but Leeds have had a decent window as well if you look at the players they brought in. But I can't criticise any element of the club as it stands. I mean, when it gets to January and we haven't got a striker, or Mayenda struggled, or Wilson struggled, or whatever it may be, and we need a 15-goal striker and we don't do it, then, maybe I'll criticise it then. But at this time and place, I think we'll suffer, yeah. I don't know if I could guarantee that I think we'll stay up, because I think there's a lot of good teams in the Premier League. I think you could make 11 signings and spend 400 million and still go down. I think Forest almost did it a few years ago and they did quite similar, although what we're doing is very different. But speaking with my heart and with my head, yeah, I think I can't criticize what they're doing and how they've tried to make sure that we do stay up. And I think that's the most I can ask from any part of Sunderland as a whole in terms of the club and the business and the players on the pitch. So yeah, Sophie, I'll give you this one. Okay, I'll give that one to
Oh
Pete.
no.
No, I'm going to give this one to Pete. There's also another good one as well. There's quite a few about Pato. Is a new keeper essential? I don't think that's necessarily. It's from Tony H, who I like. Tony speaks a lot. Good crack. But I don't think he's necessarily saying that's the case. I think he's just asking the question like, can we get by with Pato if that's what it needs to be?
I would love nothing more for Patterson to step up. I would love nothing more. However, I'm like you. I think that he needs real competition. Real competition. It's as simple as that. Simon Moore, as much as he seems to be a good lad around the dressing room, is he going to challenge Pato for that number one spot? Probably not. I just think that sometimes with Pato, and this sounds awful what I'm going to say, and I'm hoping he prove me wrong. I went to a few away games last season and he performed brilliantly. Amazing, in fact, and he was class away from home. I thought at home, I don't know whether it's because we're at home and everyone's kind of going, "Oh, Parson, get it! Like, come for the corner, come for the cross." I think sometimes he looks a bit drowned at home, and that sounds awful. And there has been time people will correct me and go, there has been times where he's performed brilliant at home. Of course there is, but week in week out, the soul's going to be packed. We haven't been at the Premier League for a very long time. And I think sometimes that can either be the best place in the world or it can be the worst. It's like that. There's a very thin line, but I do think that I don't think it's essential, but I think it's important that we get someone who can push him for that space, that spot rather. Because I would have loved Matty Young to come in, but Matty Young's still a young lad and he still needs experience and minutes. I do think one day he will be number one at Sunderland, easy. But I think it's important that we get someone who can rival him for that number one position.
Yeah, I largely agree, Sophie, to be honest. I think again, local lad, like I don't know why Pato makes me giggle like a lot. I don't know what for. He just makes me giggle. I can't pinpoint why he makes me giggle. He just does. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I do worry he's hit his ceiling a little bit with Sunderland, and I said that last season, and I don't want the playoffs and the saves to cloud my judgment on that a little bit. He had a really good playoff campaign, and he's
Mm.
he's been a goalkeeper twice when we were at Wembley and made a massive save against Wickham as well. Like I'll always love him, but I think at the very, very least, I'd like someone to come in that would say, "Hey, Pato, you're not going to be number one, by the way, all the time. You're going to get a challenge this season." Because I think one thing Simon Moore doesn't have any challenge on, by the way. He's Ben White levels of tanned. Talking about tanned players, he has a tan. That boy tans, and he certainly is more tanned than Pato. So if we're basing it on tans, Simon Moore would win. But I think even if I actually quite like Simon Moore, but I don't think he's got any real Premier League experience over like season after season after season. And I wouldn't look if Simon Moore gets injured, who comes in? Blondie seems like a great vibe, but I mean, he played for Southend and he was Stokes' third choice. I don't think he's really the answer. So I think, however we look at it, even if it's a Sam Johnson, which I don't think is going to, warm anyone's cockles, it's something. Sam Johnson's played for England before, so he's got something about him. And you see certain goalkeepers like Dean Henderson really flourish when they've got a chance. So you never know. I'd like better. I don't want Aaron Ramsdale. Thank God he's going elsewhere. And I'm not just saying that for a joke. If people can check the post I put a few days ago, that's making me titter quite a bit. But yeah, I kind of agree. Pete, I've got you a one for you here. I've got two quick fire ones.
Hello. Yes, please.
Does Eric Ten Hag use shampoo?
Dish soap fairy. That's what he uses.
Puts his head in the fucking shiny ball at the bowling just to keep it nice and shiny. But the other one is, what is your favourite form of hard stone from my idiot Stadium and Light partner, which would be Craig Simpson, who's an idiot.
My favorite form of hard stone, I think, would be like an obsidian or something like that. Something really like dark and potentially sharp. Those ones where like when you break a flake of it off, like that flake is then a weapon, but then what is left is like really cool inside. Yeah. Obsidian.
Do you want a proper one now?
Yeah, go on, why not?
Right.
I've left half-built shelves down in the basement that I was supposed to be doing, so I want to take as long on this as possible if we can.
Uh, there's a lot of questions about Daniel, which we've covered, so we can't really do that.
If you want my tuppence on Pato while you're looking at that, I would say that similarly to most other positions on the field, if there is better available for money that we have, I think they should go for it. If they were to go for
Hmm.
another goalkeeper, I'd prefer it to be somebody with a lot of experience at that top flight level and somebody a bit more vocal. That's one of the things that really does concern me a bit about Pato is that he's a little timid sometimes. For such a big fella who can throw himself about. Yeah, I'd like to see him open his mouth a bit more. Have you found any questions there, Graham?
I have, yeah. I mean, a lot of them kind of covered Daniel, and I feel like I've kind of buggered that a little bit, but this one probably makes sense. How many signings do you think we need to make in defense to be competitive? And there's another one that kind of is from a different person, but it kind of goes in line with that. It's from someone called Baldy. Could be Eric Ten Hag. Maybe he's trying to make us feel a little bit negative about the signing of his captain. But the other one is Dan Ballard a starter? I mean, he is at the moment, but I guess
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean if we bring others in,
Well, but I can answer both of those questions with the same sentence. We need two centre halves to come in, and if the right centre halves come in, then Dan Ballard doesn't start.
who's the right centre half for you? Because that like I can't pronounce his name. Is
I,
it
I, I,
McNeely?
well, look, yeah, it's that Big John,
Aye, big
Big John
John.
from Bologna, Big John from Bologna. Yeah.
If we do sign him, by the way, like considering you can't spell John correctly, I'm gonna have to start calling
Oh,
this. If we go back to what the fuck, I'm gonna have to spell it Waht, aren't I?
yeah, it's a funny old name, isn't it? You want to see my dad trying to text us.
John,
Anyway, Big John from Colombia. I hope to get
John.
in. John, yeah. In terms of another one, I don't know. I would love to see two come in. I mean, look, I would be very happy with Big John, but I would love to see two centre halves come in.
Wrexham have just put a 7 million bid in for Nathan Broadhead. Random. Anyway, I know, love Broadhead, top player.
Probably flourish there. He'll do really well. Good luck to him.
There's no other questions that kind of ask anything different, so we'll end it there. But I noticed something the other day, and I want to leave people with this. It's kind of like Jerry Springer's final thought, without the fighting and without the kind of like, "You've married my man. I've been married to 7 men," or whatever it is. I don't know. But I went to a game in the, and it almost didn't happen because COVID came back with a vengeance, and it was the Carling Cup quarter final, and we got to Arsenal away, and it was tenner a ticket. I thought, brilliant! I'll go down to Arsenal away. Why not? because it'll remind me of when we used to be a Premier League team and we're doing all right in the league. You just never know. And I went down and I actually Broadhead scored. That's kind of what reminded me about talking about it. And we had a bit of a go and we were under Lee Johnson and I thought, not too bad. But ultimately I left and we lost 5-1. And the Arsenal fans with me were like, yeah, you look like a League One team, but at least you had a goal. That goal you scored was quite nice and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, oh God, some of the players they've got that had like they brought Xhaka off the bench, Martinelli, Charlie Patino got his first goal, and I remember thinking, oh God, like the hat trick from it was Nketiah. And I remember seeing Xhaka coming off the bench and like imagine doing that. 4 years ago, that happened, I think. We're talking, it was December 2021, so not even 4 years ago. 3.5 years later, that man's potentially going to be our next captain. So, if you ever want a reminder of how quick things can turn and how well we've done, remember how nice it felt just to go to Arsenal because it was like one of those nice grounds that we used to go to all the time, and how proud we were that we scored a goal and that we had a bit of a go. Carl Winchester had a nice shot. Pritch played well. We were all going, oh, if only Broadhead stayed on, it might have just been 4-1 or 4-2. Proud of the lads for only getting beat 5-1 of such a good team. We're going to go there next year with the lad who they brought off the bench that I was like, wow. So, yeah, things changed the minute that Mr. Watson put the ball in the back of the net, and hopefully this isn't all a false dawn and we go on and have a great season. But Sophie, Pete, I know we're not doing those often because we want a bit of a summer off, but like it's been impossible to not do them, and I'm really, really pleased and happy that we're doing them. It feels really nice.
Absolutely, yes.
Lovely.
Hopefully we'll be back again soon with more signings, updates, and a confirmation, a scarf picture of Xhaka or him eating a pink slice or doing something unspeakable with a cake.
I'm so excited just to see him do the interview, like just to see
Oh,
him sitting there
absolutely. Yeah,
chatting
yeah.
away.
Behind the scenes. That's what I
Yeah.
need. On the plane, on the jet. I want to see inside the jet.
Did anyone notice? Do you know Kevy? Hopefully, people understand what I mean by Kevy. Another nice bloke. I'm pretty sure I saw Kevy filming Xhaka getting off the plane when Sky Sports were releasing it yesterday. So I think we're
Yes.
going to get it. I think we're going to get it. So look, Kevy,
I
media
didn't
team at
understand what you
Sunderland.
meant.
I
I know
thought
who
I
you
was
mean now. They all tap the
Kevy,
camera, don't they, and go,
uh,
Kev.
Kevy. So obviously the lads are not listening to this, so it's completely fine. But Matty, Kieran, all the boys at Sunderland at the minute, media's class as well, and like take that as a massive compliment that we're all excited to see not just a really
Oh
big player
yeah.
signing, but the way we're doing it. The media's been great. I think you're completely understanding and completely getting what the football club's about. And look, the talk about how well the club has been run at the moment. I just wanted to put a little well done out to the media team, who I know some of them, so I'm basically patting me mates on the back. But
I don't know any of them. I think it's great.
it is, it's really good.
I've really enjoyed all of it. Some of the best I've seen from a football club ever.
An easy thing to fuck up, and I think that they're getting absolutely wrong in the roast.
Absolutely. Hugely easy to get wrong. Anyway, we're just rambling again, aren't we?
Anyone
Should we
else's
say
ask?
goodbye, everybody?
Anyone else's ask we need to kiss before we go? Granit Xhaka again.
Um, yeah,
Why
come on,
not?
Come on, Granite. Lead us to that. Do you know, it would be great if they could get that. I'm not even going to say it out loud. Come on, Granite. Come and let us finish 17th. We're not
Yes.
going to finish 17th. It's going to be higher.
Well,
We're going to finish 10th.
Brad said 17th, but he's off his pain medication now, so he might change his mind. Right, thanks very much.
Right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.